Well, this is fitting. I'm not sure when I'll upload this, but it is like maybe an hour since I uploaded the video about this. And the guy who talked me into modifying these things, the first guy I did one for, he has agreed to buy this modified. So what I'm doing now is just making like an unboxing video of this, and I'm going to put it together with some other clips of building it for him, in particular this video, because this is a special day opening this. Kind of like opening a fine wine. We have our instruction manual. Rapid loading device, I guess he gets one of those. And the handwriting you see with Russian stuff. They give you a little thing of BBs with them. Certificate of conformity. Spare seals and a peep sight for the rear aperture. .30 round stick mag. Speed loader. Buttstock extension. Buttstock. There she is. New old stock. All right, now time to violate it. Okay, what I'm gonna do is turn this version 5.1 into a version 5.2 and give it a little more functionality. So we're gonna flash this, and then after we do that, we'll be able to adjust the screen brightness. So now if we hold down this button, press this button, we can control the brightness. So 3 different brightness levels. Alright, I'm just about to button it up. There is one thing that I wanted to mention. You shouldn't be afraid of taking these things apart and putting them back together, but there's one thing that you should be aware of when you go to reassemble it. This switch. If you try to reassemble this and put your switch down here and then go to put your cover on, that little spring clip behind it, you see it sticking up, chances are that when you go put it back together, that part right there is gonna press directly down onto it. It's not gonna make it in its groove, and it's gonna break the spring. So whenever you put one of these back together, clip the switch in the top so that can't happen. Okay, we got this part of it back together, and I've got batteries loaded in it, so I can go ahead and test it before I put the whole thing back together. So we got power, pulse button works, fire rate, burst button works. Now, to change the display brightness, what you do is you hold this button down, and while you're holding this button down, you press this button. So I'll try to do it with one hand. So there we go. Can't really see it too well on camera. So everything's working. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of it back together. I've still got to fit the shroud to it, but it's coming together nicely. Now we're a little closer, and time to test it again. Since we've got the solenoid and everything hooked up, we're just looking to make sure the solenoid's firing and the mag motor is running. And I'm not hearing anything from the mag motor. I've got another hopper over there. We'll plug that one in and see if it's working properly. Well, there she is. I'm a little bit reluctant to test it out on camera. It seems like every time the camera turns on, something goes wrong. Earlier, when I tested it, got the camera out, I went to test it after I got the board in, and one of the buttons wasn't quite right, so I had to fix that. And then what you saw was the second take. And then after I got to the second stage of testing it, you know, after the solenoid's hooked up and you're testing the solenoid and the motor, got the camera out again, and the motor wasn't working, and the damn thing wouldn't turn off. So fortunately, it had another circuit board, so I didn't troubleshoot the one that was in it. I just swapped it out. Everything was fine. But yeah, you didn't even see any of that test. So yes, she is good to go, except for testing and tuning. We've got a 500mm Russian smooth bore with a carbon fiber shroud and a 3D print, the barrel nut, and an internal bushing for that. We've got our nice brand new, already rebuilt on-off valve for it. Collapsible stock. I like these stocks. It might not be the prettiest, but they work the best when you've got your tank in here. They give you plenty of room for that. There's another skeletonized version that I like too. These ones feel good though. The skeletonized ones, they look better, but they just don't feel as good on your shoulder. Alright, we're about to test this out and maybe tune it, hopefully not. I'm gonna get a rough idea about how many shots I can get out of this little bottle while we're at it. This is the 4,500 PSI Chinese bottle that I got from AliExpress. Quite inexpensive. And it looks like I got 4,200 PSI in there. Now, something I don't think I've ever really explained on video is about the pressure and how to make it run with different pressures. This is 1,000 PSI output, which is kind of on the low side for what I normally tune them for, and normally do like 1,200 PSI, and that's kind of mainly because of the regulator availability. The Ninja Pro V2 SHP gives you an 1,100 PSI output, and without, you get a quality product without breaking the bank with that. You kind of gambling if you get this Chinese stuff. That's been my experience from watching other people over the years. But anyway, the longer the barrel you have, the less pressure you can run at extreme fire rates. So this is a 500 millimeter barrel. We could probably run 4K, 5K at 1,500 PSI, maybe 1,600 PSI. And that's provided that the clutch is perfectly tuned. And what I mean is, for this setup, that's about maximum of what it'll do, because it's kind of dependent on how hard you can drive the BBs, and that's dependent on your voltage, your motor, and your clutch pressure. So if everything's working right, you have your clutch tightened just before stall, and that'll allow you to run the highest rate of fire at the highest pressure, whatever that might be for your particular setup. So I don't generally build them with anything longer than 500 millimeters, because beyond that it starts digging into your fire rate. And I think about these things as more of in velocity terms, foot-pounds per second, instead of an individual BB going, its maximum speed. You're only going to get 1,150 feet per second out of, I would imagine, any kind of BB gun using HPA. And the reason I like a 400 millimeter barrel is because I can just compensate for a longer barrel by increasing pressure. Now, a lot of people don't have the option of increasing pressure. For example, if you've only got CO2, I just mentioned this to somebody in the comment section of a video a couple of days ago. He was wanting to know about my thoughts on a 700 millimeter barrel, and what I ended up telling him, he kind of got off track with his response, but ended up telling him that just what I told you, and that a 700 barrel makes sense for something running off of CO2, where, you know, a short barrel is definitely not going to give you much velocity, but the longer barrel is going to allow gas expansion. And if you don't have one of my builds, you're not going to get anywhere near those extreme fire rates. So I was suggesting to him that 700 millimeter barrel, if you can put up with the length, because they're about that long, with a full auto chip would be a good option for a CO2 powered gun. All right, let's test this thing. Okay, when I turned the gas on, it took a second for the seals to seat. So I'm gonna shoot a couple of singles with this before we go to the rock and roll, just to make sure that everything is seated. Yeah, sometimes the valve, after you polish it and put it back in there, it won't want to seat with the seat, and a little bit of pressure helps to seat it and to shoot it a few times. So alright, my clutch is too loose. I'm going to try lower fire rate. Alright, now before we go adjusting it, I'm just going to try 5K one more time. Now we need to tighten it up. So we are at 143 on the counter, and we're bled down pretty far. Yeah, we're at 1000 psi, so 1000 psi output regulator, 143 shots. So that is done. I should also mention that this only pertains to my builds. If you go in there and start tightening the clutch on your Blackbird without the necessary modifications, you're probably going to run into some problems and damage the inside of it. But for those of you who do have my builds and don't know, you might need to tune it from time to time. Mine seems to stay in tune. I don't shoot it very often, so I don't know how long it would take it to get out of tune. But I think that they stay in tune a good long time once they're in there. I don't ever get people saying, hey, my gun shot great when I had it, but now I'm getting a lot of air shots, which is what would happen if you did need to tune it. You start getting air shots at high RPMs, and you could tell by dropping down your fire rate. And let's say, like for example, that test just in there, it was shooting 2K fine, but I didn't continue to go up to see the maximum fire rate it would do, but 5K was out of the question. came in here, it was quite loose. But you want to hold onto that with some pliers and then tighten this. And then after you tighten that, you want to continue to hold that cog with pliers and spin this clutch, make it break and spin away from the shaft. And it should be quite tight, but it's impossible for me to tell you exactly how tight, and every build's different. I send them out, you know, tuned to the maximum of whatever pressure using to test the gun for. But you don't have to tune them that tight if you don't want to shoot a high extreme rate. It'll be more efficient if you were only to do, if you only shot, say, no faster than 2K. The way it was before would have been better, because the motor wouldn't be drawing as much energy, because it's able to slip. And I almost forgot, most Blackbirds stock, they'll have a nut here with it doesn't have any sides to it. It's just an all-round nut, top hat shaped. And they're supposed to have a paint dot on it, some red paint indicating that, or to prevent that nut from moving. But I've seen several of them where they don't have any paint on it and that nut is just easy to move. So in that case, you would want to tighten your clutch a little. You wouldn't want to tighten it a lot. What you'd want to do is above the nut, you'd want to maybe use some blue Loctite and screw it down far enough to where you have 2 or 3 threads exposed on this end of it. So now we're switching over to 1000 PSI 90 4500, and we're going to run a hose with it. Yeah, because I could screw it onto here, but it's just unwieldy. And we're going to use a coil hose instead of a micro bore hose like we use on the First Strike, because this thing just breathes so heavy that a micro bore hose will make it affect it as if it was running a lot lower pressure, and we wouldn't get good results, accurate results. Like the way it was before, if we tried to run the micro bore hose, there's a good chance we would have hit 4K. We wouldn't have had the velocity though. Okay, now we're going to show you how to replace the seals on a slide check valve. What you do is you remove your Foster fitting, and you'll have a lock ring. I think just about all models. This is a Ninja slide check valve. I think just about all of them have a lock ring on there that helps to keep the collar from moving too far forward. So we're going to unscrew this and pull that lock ring off, and then this will slide off and show us our seals. Okay, we got it apart. Now the seals are inside there, one on either side. The one that always goes first is the one that is in the front towards the Foster fitting, because whenever you slide it back or forward, it allows gas through that hole and through there. There's a little passageway from that hole to that hole. So when you slide it back, gas, whatever's in the magazine, whatever you have it plugged into, that escapes out of there at whatever pressure you're running. And as it does, it blows past that seal, and it's really hard on the seal. When you're running a slide check valve, anything over 1000 PSI is pretty rough on it. what you want to do is occasionally just twist that so you're not running that same part of that seal over that jet of high pressure air every time you slide it back and forth. So we're going to dig these out with, I use these, let me see if I can find one, these needles. I just get it under the seal and pull them out. And these are the same size as you have on your regulator. So a very common size. Now, what type of material you use for this also makes a big difference. I use cast urethane 90D, and those are about as tough as you can get. Now, my seals look good. It may have been coming from that ASA adapter and the shutoff. I'm not sure, but I'll let you know what it was. Now, when you go to put it back together on these Ninja slide checks, one side is beveled down in here and the other is not. That beveled side is supposed to point towards your Foster fitting. So you stick that back together and give it some, clean it off with I like to use the WD-40 silicone spray, and that'll help you clean everything off. Put your seals back in there, put some silicone oil on them, slide it back on, and then I use this telephone tape for gas lines because it's nice and thick. And dude, I cut it in half actually, lengthwise. And then I'll wrap 2 wraps going in the direction that you would screw something down onto it. So this way, 2 wraps, and have it overlap slightly here so it doesn't just bunch up and push it out of your threads. The problem was that I had this in the what position would you call that? Anyway, it was all the way, had the pin all the way forward, so air couldn't come out of it, and the would depressurize the magazine. On one of the ones that I have, it doesn't have that function. If you screw this forward, it won't bleed the magazine, so it wouldn't have mattered with that kind. But these Valkens give you that additional feature of bleeding your hopper. So we'll just go ahead and run it on down, and we should be fine that way. While we're on slide checks, this is a Ninja slide check, and this is one from AliExpress. We've got a brass Foster fitting on the Ninja, and it's dark colored, not as reflective as the stainless steel. This is something like, it's probably 304, and body and fitting stainless. Now the collar is aluminum, and this is all aluminum body and collar. The one from AliExpress is quite shorter. The only drawback I found with these is that when you turn them off, or leave them pressurized, if you leave this on, all the way forward where you've got pressure in your line, if you leave it for any amount of time like that, it gets real sticky. Now that might only be because of the type of seals in here. I don't know, but those are quite inexpensive. A dog hunt. All right, all that's left to do is box it up and get it in the mail to him. Now, this is going to blow your mind, but he actually has this right now. And he's also got this stuff. This is a bonus surprise for him. This is my shotgun conversion for one of these. I never did a video on it, but I got it ready. I made a couple of them, had them ready to go. I don't know. Anyway, what you do with this is there is a bushing here. See that? So you take this end of it, and with a Blackbird barrel, you need the Blackbird muzzle. The muzzle that sticks out like so far, that you have the fake suppressor comes with the little set screw in the bottom that holds it tight. You would take that off, so you just have your bare muzzle there, and this simply slides onto that. It's got a nice snug fit, and then you can choose to block the feed the valve body where the BBs go up in there. If you block that, you get about 20% more velocity, I think. But if you don't block it, you can leave your hopper full of BBs, set this on full auto, and your first shot is going to be a shotgun round followed by a stream of BBs. Let's see. He gets, these are lead. I think these have like 25 lead BBs in them. And the way these work is it comes with a little jig. This just helps you with this part of it. You put it in there. Got a little razor knife I printed. Well, you can't get it open with one hand, but you got it out, and along the edge of this, let me try to get some light. You see that little band about this high up where my fingernail is? There's a little band of material there, printed material. That little band goes all the way around. And what you do is you take that razor and cut each one of those. And then when you cut them, that just removes the support that these sides have. And then so they're really fragile at that point. So what you do is you put them in this clip, and then you can put this clip in your pocket, and when you want to shoot one, you just pop it out, drop it down your barrel, and yeah, it's ready to go then. All right, guys, that is it for this one. Hope it's not it for all of them. So I'll see y'all later.